Two influencers vanished on a luxury brand trip. Their designer bags were found hundreds of miles apart, and what was inside them changed everything we thought we knew about fame, fortune, and the price people pay for both. This is the story of Jasmine Williams and Emma Hayes, two women at the peak of their careers who accepted an invitation they should have refused. What happened to them in those final days wasn't just a disappearance. It was something far more deliberate, far more chilling, and far more connected to the world of social media than anyone could have imagined. The bags they left behind weren't abandoned. They were placed, and the message hidden inside them reveals a truth that will make you question everything you see online. Stay with me, because this story goes deeper and darker than you think. And if you want more mysteries that peel back the surface of our modern world, make sure you're subscribed because we're just getting started. Jasmine Williams had 2.4 million followers. Her aesthetic was bold and unapologetic. She wore bright colors, celebrated her natural hair in every texture and style, and built a brand around confidence and self-love. Her audience loved her realness, the way she made luxury feel accessible, even when she was wearing designer pieces most people could never afford. Emma Hayes had 3.1 million followers. She was the minimalist queen, all neutral tones and soft lighting. Her feed looked like a magazine spread, every detail perfectly placed. She made simplicity look expensive and made her audience believe that less was always more. They weren't close friends. They ran in the same circles, smiled for photos together at launches and fashion week events, exchanged polite compliments in comment sections. But their relationship was professional, the kind of connection built on mutual respect and understanding of the game they were both playing. When Aether Lux sent them both invitations to an exclusive brand retreat, neither hesitated to accept. Aether Lux wasn't just another luxury label. It was the luxury label, the kind of brand that didn't advertise in traditional ways. It selected. It whispered. It made you feel chosen, like you'd been noticed by someone who mattered. The invitation arrived in black boxes with silver embossing, hand-delivered by courier who required a signature, and made the whole thing feel important. Inside was a handwritten note on thick paper that smelled faintly of cedar and something else they couldn't quite identify. The retreat would be held at a private estate in the mountains. 5 days of exclusive access to the new collection, and the opportunity to be part of something bigger than a campaign. The language was deliberately vague, mysterious in a way that luxury brands had perfected. It promised transformation, elevation, belonging to an inner circle most people would never access. Both women posted the invitation to their stories within hours. Jasmine's post was playful, excited, asking her followers to guess what she'd be wearing. Emma's was more subtle, just the black box against white sheets with a cryptic caption about new beginnings. The responses were immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of comments flooded in. People wanted to know everything. Where were they going? What would they see? Could they come too? The hype was already building, the algorithm already pushing their posts to more people, and neither Jasmine nor Emma had even packed yet. The estate was located 4 hours north of the city, accessible only by a single winding road that cut through dense forest. There were no nearby towns, no gas stations, no places to stop. The directions provided were specific and warned against using GPS because service was unreliable. It was isolation by design. Luxury required separation from the ordinary world, a sense of escape that only worked when you couldn't easily return. When Jasmine and Emma arrived on the same day, within an hour of each other, they were greeted by staff dressed entirely in black who moved with quiet efficiency. They didn't make small talk or ask about the drive. They simply guided the influencers to their rooms and disappeared down hallways that seemed to multiply the longer you looked at them. The estate itself was stunning in a cold, architectural way. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a valley that stretched endlessly into fog. Marble floors reflected everything, doubling the space and making footsteps echo. Furniture looked like art installations, beautiful but uncomfortable, designed to be photographed rather than used. Everything was white, black, or silver. Every surface was cold to the touch. The temperature inside was carefully controlled, but always felt slightly too cool, keeping everyone just uncomfortable enough to stay alert. There were 12 influencers total, all carefully selected from different niches and different markets. Some Jasmine and Emma recognized from collaborations and events. Others were new faces with massive international followings, people who dominated platforms in languages they didn't speak but whose influence was undeniable. Everyone was beautiful in that specific Instagram way, where even casual moments looked professionally lit. The first evening was a welcome dinner that felt more like a performance than a meal. Champagne and crystal glasses that caught the candlelight perfectly. A multi-course meal that was almost too beautiful to eat. Each played a work of art that demanded to be photographed from multiple angles. The creative director of Aether Lux gave a speech about vision, legacy, and the responsibility that came with influence. He was a thin man in his 50s with silver hair and a voice that commanded attention without ever rising. He talked about how the brand was evolving, how they were looking for partners who understood that luxury wasn't just about owning things, it was about embodying a philosophy, about being willing to sacrifice comfort for beauty, convention for innovation. He said the word sacrifice 3 times, and each time his eyes moved across their faces like he was looking for something specific. The influencers listened, nodded, posted subtle photos of the table settings and the view through those massive windows. Everything was perfect. Everything was controlled. Everyone smiled at the right moments and laughed at the right jokes. For the first 2 days, it stayed that way. The retreat followed a strict schedule that was presented as structure, but felt more like surveillance. Morning yoga at 6 in a glass room where you could see the valley, but also be seen from every angle of the estate. Breakfast at 7:30, always the same foods arranged slightly differently to create the illusion of variety. Presentations about the brand's history went into exhausting detail about materials and processes, about the philosophy behind every stitch and seam. Afternoon sessions showcased pieces from the new collection, items that wouldn't be available for another year, dresses that cost more than most people's cars, bags that required wait lists measured in years. Everything was described as an investment, never just a purchase. Documentation was constant but controlled. Staff provided phones loaded with pre-selected photos, professionally shot images that made everyone look flawless. Personal devices were discouraged during official events. It was framed as an opportunity to be present, to experience the brand without distraction. But it also meant every image that left the estate had been approved, vetted, stripped of anything that didn't fit the narrative Aether Lux wanted to tell. Jasmine found it unsettling, but stayed quiet. She'd been on enough brand trips to know some companies were more controlling than others. Emma posted a story joking about a digital detox, but her smile looked tight, forced. On the 3rd night, things shifted in a way that was subtle at first, but impossible to ignore once you noticed. The group was told that the next day would feature a special experience. The creative director explained that Aether Lux was launching a new tier of exclusivity, not just a collection, but a membership, an inner circle. The chosen influencers would become brand ambassadors for life, with access to private events, custom pieces, and financial compensation that dwarfed typical sponsorships. But there was a selection process. That night, each influencer found an envelope slipped under their door. Inside was a single card with a time written in silver ink. Jasmine said 11 p.m. Emma's said 11:15. The instructions were simple and strange. Come to the lower gallery alone. Bring nothing. Tell no one. Jasmine almost didn't go. Something about the secrecy felt wrong, theatrical in a way that crossed a line. But she told herself she was overthinking it. This was a luxury brand. They specialized in making people feel special, in creating experiences that felt rare and coveted. This was just another layer of that carefully constructed mystique. She went. The lower gallery was accessible by a narrow staircase at the back of the estate, one she hadn't noticed before. It was dimly lit, walls lined with black velvet that absorbed sound and made the space feel suffocating. In the center of the room sat a single chair facing a camera on a tripod. A woman in black stood beside it, her face partially obscured by shadows and the harsh angle of overhead light. She gestured for Jasmine to sit without speaking. The woman explained in a flat, emotionless voice that this was a recorded interview, a chance for Jasmine to share her thoughts about influence, authenticity, and what she was willing to do to maintain her status. The questions started simple enough. How did you build your following? What does success mean to you? What would you sacrifice to stay relevant? Then they got stranger, more invasive, more pointed. If you could erase one person's platform to elevate your own, would you do it? If you knew a secret about a competitor that could destroy them, would you share it? What is the worst thing you've done for a brand deal? What lie do you tell yourself to justify the person you've become? Jasmine answered carefully at first, giving polished responses she'd perfected over years of interviews. But the woman kept pushing, kept waiting for something deeper, something real. Finally, Jasmine stopped mid-sentence and asked what this had to do with the collection, with the partnership, with anything they'd been told this retreat was about. The woman didn't answer. She just smiled, a thin expression that looked practiced and empty, and said the interview was over. Jasmine left feeling disturbed, her hands shaking as she climbed the stairs back to the main floor. Emma had a similar experience 15 minutes later. The same questions, the same pressure, the same feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with what was happening. When they ran into each other in the hallway afterward, both women walking quickly like they were trying to escape something, they didn't speak at first. There was an unspoken understanding that whatever had just happened wasn't something they were supposed to discuss. But Emma broke first. She grabbed Jasmine's arm and pulled her into an empty sitting room that smelled like cedar and dust. She asked in a whisper if Jasmine's interview had felt wrong, if the questions had crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. Jasmine admitted it had felt invasive, manipulative, nothing like what they'd been promised. They compared notes quietly, speaking fast and low, even though they were alone. The next morning, 2 influencers were gone. Not Jasmine and Emma, but 2 others. A man with a massive fitness following who posted workout videos that got millions of views. A woman who specialized in travel content and had partnerships with airlines and luxury resorts. The staff said they had decided to leave early, that the retreat wasn't the right fit for their personal brand. But their belongings were still in their rooms, phones still charging on nightstands, designer luggage still stacked neatly in closets. No one saw them leave during the night. No one heard cars in the gravel driveway. The remaining influencers were deeply uneasy, but no one wanted to be the one to cause a scene, to admit they were scared. This was Aether Lux. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Asking too many questions felt like proving you didn't belong, like admitting you weren't sophisticated enough to understand whatever game was being played. The day continued as planned. More presentations about leather tanning and fabric weaving, more carefully staged photos and perfect lighting. But the energy had shifted completely. People were quieter, jumping at sounds, watching the staff with suspicious eyes. Smiles looked forced and desperate. That evening, there was no formal dinner. Instead, influencers were told they could explore the estate freely, that staff had prepared private dining experiences in different rooms throughout the property. It was framed as a gift, a chance to relax and decompress after an intense few days. But it also meant separation. It meant isolation. It meant no one would be together if something happened. Jasmine chose to eat in her room. She ordered something light from a menu left on her pillow, barely touched it, and spent the evening scrolling through messages. Her manager had sent multiple texts asking for updates, for content, for something to show clients. Her family wanted to know when she'd be home. She replied with vague reassurances that felt like lies and turned off her phone. Emma, meanwhile, decided to explore despite the growing sense of dread she couldn't shake. She walked through hallways she hadn't noticed before, testing doors that seemed to blend into walls. She found a room on the east wing, small and windowless, and hidden behind what looked like a decorative panel. The door was unlocked, which felt wrong immediately. Inside, one wall was completely covered in photographs. Not professional brand images or campaign shots. These were candid photos, surveillance images, influencers at public events, but also influencers at home, in private moments they never posted. She saw herself in several photos, moments she didn't remember being photographed. Herself eating lunch at her favorite cafe 2 months ago. Walking to her car in her neighborhood on a random Tuesday. Getting mail from her apartment building mailbox. Someone had been watching her. Someone had been documenting her life, her movements, her routines. And she wasn't alone on that wall. Every influencer at the retreat was there. Jasmine shopping at a grocery store. Others at gyms, coffee shops, visiting family. All of them captured without knowledge, without consent, in moments they thought were private and safe. Emma backed out of the room slowly, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She went straight to Jasmine's door and knocked hard, not caring who heard. When Jasmine opened it, still in her robe from the untouched dinner, Emma didn't wait. She told her everything in a rush of words, the photos, the surveillance, the certainty that this entire retreat was something else, something dangerous. Jasmine listened, her face going pale, her hands gripping the doorframe. When Emma finished, Jasmine told her about the interview questions, about how they felt designed to extract confessions rather than create partnerships. They both knew immediately and without discussion. They needed to leave. Right now. Tonight. Before whatever was happening progressed any further. But when they went to the main entrance, those heavy wooden doors that had been open and welcoming when they arrived, they found them locked. Not just closed, but secured with deadbolts that required keys they didn't have. The staff was nowhere to be found. The estate that had felt full of invisible workers now felt completely abandoned. Their phones had no signal, not even for emergency calls. The landline in the main hall, an ornate vintage phone that was more decoration than utility, was dead. No dial tone, just silence. They tried windows, but found them sealed shut with locks hidden in the frames. Every door they tested was secured from the outside. The glass yoga room was locked. The kitchen was locked. Even the bathrooms and common areas were inaccessible. They were trapped, deliberately, systematically, and somewhere in the estate, hidden in rooms they hadn't found or behind cameras they couldn't see, something was watching them figure it out. Panic set in slowly, then all at once like cold water rising. Jasmine and Emma went room to room, trying to find another exit, another person, any explanation. They found 3 other influencers doing the same, all wide-eyed and breathing hard. A beauty creator named Sienna, who did makeup tutorials. A tech reviewer named Jordan, who explained gadgets in simple terms. A lifestyle blogger named EERIE, who posted about wellness and morning routines. All of them had the same story. Locked doors, no staff, no way to call for help, no explanation for any of it. The 5 of them gathered in the main hall under those massive windows that now felt less like luxury and more like being in a fishbowl. They tried to make sense of what was happening. Sienna said she'd seen 2 staff members earlier in the evening, around 9, walking toward the lower gallery with large black cases. Jordan said he'd heard a vehicle leaving around midnight, but assumed it was supplies or a shift change. Aria was crying, saying she never should have come. That she'd felt something was wrong from the beginning, but ignored it because she wanted the opportunity too badly. Jasmine took charge because someone had to, and panic was spreading like a fire. She suggested they stick together, search the estate systematically, and find anything that could help them contact the outside world, or at least understand what they were dealing with. They moved as a group, checking every room on every floor. In the kitchen, they found food in industrial refrigerators, fresh ingredients, and prepared meals enough for weeks. but every knife was gone. Every sharp object, every potential weapon had been systematically removed. Drawers were full of spoons and spatulas, but nothing with a blade or point. In the office, they found an expensive computer on a marble desk. But it was password protected, and when Jordan tried to bypass it, he discovered it was completely disconnected from any network. No internet, no way to send a message. In the staff quarters, they found nothing at all. No personal belongings, no photos or clothes or signs anyone had ever lived there. It was all set dressing, a movie set designed to look authentic but hollow underneath. Then Jordan found the control room. It was hidden behind a bookshelf in what appeared to be a library. He'd been leaning against it, trying to think, when it swung open on hidden hinges. Inside was a wall of monitors, showing camera feeds from every room in the estate. The main hall where they'd just been standing, the bedrooms where they'd slept, the bathrooms where they'd showered. Every private moment had been recorded, watched, archived. And in the corner was a desk with files, thick folders bound in expensive leather, each labeled with an influencer's name in silver lettering. Jasmine opened hers with shaking hands. Inside was everything. Her real address, not the P.O. box she used publicly. Her family members' names, photos, daily routines. Her financial records showing exactly how much she made from every brand deal. Her private messages with friends, somehow copied and printed. Screenshots of posts she'd deleted years ago. Medical records from doctor visits she'd never mentioned online. Therapy notes from sessions she thought were confidential. Every secret, every vulnerability, every piece of herself she'd tried to protect was documented in that folder. Emma's file was identical in its invasion. So were the others. Someone had spent months, maybe years, compiling this information, investigating them, learning everything about their lives, their families, their fears. This wasn't a brand retreat. This was research, preparation. EERIE asked the question they were all thinking, her voice barely a whisper. Preparation for what? The monitors flickered once, twice, then went completely black. Silence. Then a voice came through hidden speakers. Calm. Male. Almost kind. It said they'd all been chosen for a reason. They'd all built careers on performing perfection, on selling versions of themselves that didn't exist. They'd all made compromises, told lies, hurt people to grow their followings. Now they were going to be part of something real, something that mattered more than engagement rates. The voice said that by morning, the doors would open. They would be free to leave. But first, they would understand the true cost of influence. The screens turned back on, but now they weren't showing the estate. They were showing live feeds of the influencers' homes, Jasmine's apartment, Emma's house, the others' places. And in each location, someone dressed in black was inside, moving through rooms, touching belongings, standing in doorways. The message was clear. This wasn't just about them. It was about everyone they loved. The voice said their families were safe for now, but what happened next depended entirely on their cooperation. Each of them would participate in a final interview. They would answer honestly. They would confess everything they'd hidden, and it would all be recorded. If they refused, the people in their homes would act. One by one, they went to that lower gallery and told the truth. Jasmine talked about buying followers, sabotaging competitors, hiding her struggles behind filters. Emma confessed to staging moments, lying about products, cutting people from her life who didn't fit her aesthetic. The others admitted to similar sins, every ugly truth behind their perfect feeds. When morning came, the doors opened. They left in silence. They didn't call police, because they knew those recordings existed, and if they spoke, their careers would end. So they stayed silent and went back to posting. 2 weeks later, Emma's designer bag was found in a gas station dumpster, 150 miles from the estate. Inside were cosmetics and a journal, but her ID and phone were gone. 3 days after that, Jasmine's clutch appeared at a trailhead 400 miles away. Inside was a water-damaged paper with a date written in silver ink, the date of the retreat. Police were called, missing persons reports filed, but Jasmine and Emma were gone. Their accounts went dark. Their families got vague texts. Their apartments were empty. The investigation went nowhere. The estate traced to a shell company. The staff couldn't be identified. Aether Lux denied everything. Then edited clips of the confessions surfaced online, brief moments of each influencer admitting to lies, just enough to damage reputations. The message was clear. The people behind this had total control. 6 months later, a new brand launched. Just a silver symbol. It sent invitations in black boxes to new influencers. Most threw them away, but some accepted, because the allure of being chosen was too strong. And those influencers started posting about it, building hype, until one by one they went quiet. Their last posts always showed a designer bag, then nothing. The truth about Jasmine and Emma was never confirmed, but there's a theory that makes more sense than any other. They weren't killed. They were recruited. The retreat was an audition. The recordings weren't blackmail. They were proof of commitment. The bags were markers, signals for others who understood that there was another level to the game, and if you were willing to sacrifice everything, your identity, your past, your name, you could join. That silver symbol appears in photos from influencers worldwide. Never prominent, always subtle. A mark on a wall, a pendant, a watermark. It's a reminder that fame has a price, and some pay more than others. Jasmine Williams and Emma Hayes aren't missing. They're playing a different game now, one we're not invited to see. But their bags, expensive and empty, are still out there, still being found, still carrying the same message. That influence is a transaction, and eventually, everyone pays. This is the dark side of the world we've built, where perception is reality, and reality can be bought, where people trade truth for a version that sells, and somewhere the architects of that world are watching, selecting, preparing the next invitation. So when you see that silver symbol, when that black box arrives, ask yourself what you're willing to give up for the promise of being chosen. Because Jasmine and Emma made their choice, and now they're part of something we can only guess at from the fragments they left behind. The terrifying truth is often closer than we think. Let me know your deepest thoughts on this case below, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling stories that reveal the dark side of modern life.